Command points, more like command pointless, am I right? Kill me. What's wrong with Kill Team? I have now played a respectable amount of Kill Team games. I've played a few different factions and I've played with and without commanders. I've even played on the Rogue Trader boards. So with that in mind, I have picked out the 6 biggest flaws I've found with the game and how it could be improved. These are command points, objective-based gameplay, commanders, terrain, the campaign system, and, somewhat more woolly-y, the 40k legacy. Now, of course, these are entirely my own thoughts, and what everybody wants in a game is different, so what I think will make a better game might not work for you. Even with that very clear proviso right up front, I'm fully prepared for this to be my most downvoted video to date. Now, I'm considering this video as a bit of a halfway house, blending together Kill Team, the reason most of you watch, and game design, which are some videos I've got coming up at some point in the future. Also, on a few of them, I get a little bit ranty, so brace yourself. Okay, let's dive in. Let's start with the biggest issue, command points. Using tactics is great. They add flexibility, power, interest, a little bit of a hidden information component, which I love in games. For example, Star Wars X-Wing has its hidden movement dials. Now, you've just managed to outmaneuver them at every turn, and you've pulled off the perfect charge with your melee trooper, but they know how much trouble they're in, so they play decisive strike. But you need to go first because this fight is happening on an objective, so you play your decisive strike, and you roll off for it, but you fluff the roll when you miss with all of your attacks. But you use your tactical reroll, and it hits, and it wounds, and he fails the armor save, but then uses his tactical reroll and saves it. But this is so key that you use your attack twice tactic and you go again and the tension is back on and your attacks hit and they wound and he fails the armor save and you roll a 6 for your entry roll and you bark out a shout of success, but he holds up his next tactic. When a model would be taken out of action on a 4+, that model takes a flesh wound instead. Now that's an exciting exchange, and use of tactics is forcing you to make good player choices. Now that would be a critical turning point of the game, and for both players to do everything they did, they'd need a minimum of 5 command points. Now, have a think of your own games. How often do you have a spare 5 command points? Assuming you've been playing to the best of your ability and you've actually remembered to use them, right? I have found that my games tend to be more like, oh yeah, I guess I'll reroll that charge. Oh, I still failed it. And then I guess I'll reroll my hit roll in the shooting phase. Oh, I still failed it. So exciting. Yay. Now let's assume that the designers actually did some playtesting and balancing the game, which they clearly did. But that means the game is currently balanced around only having 2 command points to spend. So a flat, let's add 5 command points at the beginning of the game, is going to affect some armies significantly more than others, and so isn't entirely fair. But give it a go. See how much more fun starting the game with 5 command points is than with only 2. However, of course, starting with that big chunk of command points actually makes the game a bit swingy, and having the potential problem that 40k has regarding alpha strike issues being so powerful that who gets the first turn can often decide a game. So another easy fix is, very simply, you get 2 command points at the beginning of every turn instead of 1. With 3 command points a turn, you're still forced to make decisions. You can't go crazy, and you could still burn through those command points with only rerolls and end up not using any of your interesting tactics, which isn't the point of command points. I'd love to recommend some sort of pooling and discarding mechanic, but it gets really clunky. Also, as the game is balanced around the current command point system, it would mess with certain commanders and specialists. Given a complete redesign of the system, however, more action-packed scenarios could occur, but as it stands right now, I say start the game with 5 command points. Yeah, crazy, I know. Everything else is the same. Gain 1 passively at the start of each turn and +1 for your leader still being alive. I think that this small change to the core game will allow for much more clutch moments that will build tension and excitement into every single game. Or, you can just re-roll a few rolls, I guess. Technically, you can do that. Anyway, my final word on the subject will be command points, more like command pointless. Am I right? Kill me. Oh boy. Anyway, objective-based gameplay. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that focusing on objectives is far superior to kill the other team or first team to break loses. But my issue here is focusing on the match play missions, and I suppose I'm actually complaining more about the tournaments that have been run so far, more than the core rulebook itself. But they were all basically the same. Hold 4 to 6 objectives that are located around the map, whoever holds the most wins. And that's great, don't get me wrong, brilliant, that's a brilliant mission, and I don't want that to be removed. However, that seems to be, so far, the only way anyone can figure out how to make Kill Team competitive. Well, and 40k and Age of Sigmar, but let's try and stay focused here, guys. Let's try and stay focused. And when I say competitive, what I mean is equally balanced so that all teams have a fair chance of winning. Which boggles my mind, by the way. It's exactly that kind of tournament mission design that has caused a pretty definitive tier list to be built. Hordes win because they can get more bodies on objectives, and Tyranids win because they can ignore Shaken. And that should 100% be the case for those objective holding missions. That's great, that's fine. But having 5 rounds of objective holding missions just seems bizarre. Could no one else seriously think of a balanced objective? And it's such a shame, because in the narrative mission, the team prove they can think of interesting objectives and fun scenarios that are, to be honest, relatively balanced. So why did the tournament organisers drop the ball so hard? Okay, in hindsight, I realise that this isn't a problem with Kill Team, but a problem with Kill Team tournaments, and it's still early days, and this is also the easiest to fix, as it's not requiring a change to the rulebook, as it's the tournament mission packs that are all their own separate things. All I'm saying, guys, is a few other win conditions that are pretty balanced, but provide wildly different gameplay are Assassinate the Leader missions, Capture the Flag, Hold the Relic, Defend and Destroy. These are all tried and true missions with symmetrical gameplay that are more than just dump more models on your opponent in this general area. And we know that the Games Workshop guys can do this. Just go out and buy the Age of Sigmar Skirmish book. They have some really interesting missions in that. And it's the same rule team. I don't know what they're doing. Let's talk commanders. This is only a short one, and don't get me wrong. Why do I keep saying don't get me wrong? Anyway, I think commanders are a great concept and they're a brilliant idea, but they're super imbalanced, guys. Yeah. There are certain setups that simply cannot be countered by the enemy team depending on which faction the players choose. I mean, you may as well not even play the game. Just look at each other's lists and decide who wins. Seriously, that's how bad it is with some of the commanders. Also, certain matchups are literally a who gets the first turn game. You might as well just dice off and whoever rolls higher gets the win. Again, commanders are great, brilliant idea. They could have been thought out a little bit better, maybe. Or, and this is an idea I'm not a fan of, but they should never be included in match play and tournaments because they are that imbalanced. Who knows? Terrain. Okay, so terrain, as it stands right now, is not a thing. It's boring. Okay, I feel like the design team is clearly struggling to wrap their heads around how terrain should be used, as this has been a big complaint in 40k core set. It's not a set, is it? In the 40k core game too. But wait, I hear you cry. Glass, terrain in Kill Team is great and super important, and my boards are filled with the stuff. What could possibly be wrong with terrain? So I agree, you're right. The boards are looking great and terrain is vital to the game. Terrain has been baked into the game as critical, and if you played on an open board, the entire game would change the meta. And I do love a packed board of terrain, but that's all terrain is, isn't it? Terrain in its current implementation is just blocking line of sight. Answer me this: how often do you use terrain for more than obscurement? How often have you used difficult or dangerous terrain outside of trapping in the scout phase? What about area terrain? Now, we know that the rules guys think terrain is cool. They have some great rules for it in the Killzone expansion boxes. But those all tie into my first issues with command points, as they require command points to activate them. We need more area terrain is basically what I'm saying, guys. Or fire point terrain like the bunker. Those are great additional rules. Give us options. That's what we need. Give us options and let us decide how to use it. Give me an ammo dump. Terrain that if I stand next to, I passively get +1 shot. But if they roll a 6 to hit me, I take a mortal wound in addition to other damage. Give me an oil slick. Area terrain that my movement speed is +D6 when I cross it, but I can only shoot pistols if I've used it in that movement phase. Or give me zip lines that have to be placed on the 3rd floor and let me move to any 2nd floor building on the map, but on the roll of a 1, I take a mortal wound. Give me options, and damn it, make those options independent from the already starved command point hack job that sadly underpins the entire game. The campaign system. Guys, it sucks. It's terrible. I genuinely think that the campaign system, and I use the word system loosely, is the most phoned in part of the game. It's just so nothing. Who cares, you know? There's no customizability for your guys like there is in Necromunda. It makes the fact that your guys aren't really your guys, they're just weapon loadouts and datasheets, really obvious. It honestly kind of kills the whole thing for me. Oh, and getting a level up on a specialist typically just hurts because they are then overcosted for a 100-point game. And what is the official advice for that? None. There is no official advice. Just a vague notion, a hand wave from the developers. Like, oh, hey guys, after a few games, increase the points limit. How wishy bloody washy can you be? The campaign system for Kill Team has honestly been an all-round fail for me. It's accentuated the things I don't like about the game, and Finally, Kill Team is its own game. The designers had total freedom to create whatever rules they wanted. And we know they can create tight rule systems. We've seen it in Shadespire. They're not idiots, they know how to make games. However, for obvious reasons, they decided to make it very similar to 40k. Great, that's fine. I'm not saying I wanted Shadespire in 40k. And that's great, and it makes it an easy crossover and entry point for their main game system. However, it does mean two things. Firstly, that it inherits all of the issues that main 40k has. But that's an entire can of worms and not Kill Team's problems. So we're not going to dive into every single problem 40k has, right? Secondly, and more importantly, while the designers added and modified certain rules, they also seem to have copy-pasted almost all of the unit profiles. Now, that's not inherently bad. And actually, I'm all for it, as it makes the transition from one system to the other simple. If you know the rules in Kill Team, then you know the rules in 40k. You can take your Kill Team, boom, it's your 40k army. You don't need to know anything else. Brilliant concept. However, the rules for Kill Team are not the same as the rules for 40k, and this leads to some bizarre situations that I'm sure weren't intentional. The whole Tau Breachers only being able to fire at their full profile without a minus to hit at 3 inches being a prime example. That's insane. Or the basic guns of the Eldar only having that at 6 inches. The designers had multiple ways of fixing these issues with a few unique rules to affected units that suffered inconsistencies when the kill team rules were implemented. Or they could have changed points costs accordingly, accepted that some units just didn't cross over as well as the default Marine stat line. But they didn't. Almost across the board, they kept the unit points costs in line with their 40k equivalent, or in some cases raised them, but seemingly didn't lower any, I think. Again, this issue is less pronounced in the Marine armies as they are the baseline. It just seems like they rushed the unit abilities and stats, honestly. They clearly put a lot of thought into the core rules and how they wanted everything to interact and work on this smaller scale, and they've done a great job. But they then literally copy-pasted all of the units. Like, what? I honestly wonder what they were thinking when they did that. I mean, I hate to say it, but the entire point costings and non-modification of some units comes across as just lazy. Well, okay, no, not lazy. That is entirely unfair. As I have said before, we know they can make a tight rule system. It comes across as distracted. Like they had too much to do because they're overworked and they never updated the rules for certain units after they penciled them in for the beta rules because they simply had far too much going on. Which seems entirely possible, and as such, I blame Games Workshop's corporate structure, not the actual game designers. Seriously, Games Workshop needs to double the amount of rules guys they have. They have 6. Make it 12. They've got the money. They're swimming in it. It's Scrooge McDuck over there. They can afford 6 new guys. Or girls, obviously. And there you go, everybody. 6 things that I believe Kill Team doesn't quite get right. I really think the lack of command points is the main issue, and while it's easy to house rule, it's also an easy fix in an FAQ. Yes, I know I'm far too hopeful and it will never happen. But you've got to have hope, because they have made a decent little game there. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little bridge between Kill Team and game design chats, and I hope you've had a good day so far and continue to do so. Glass Half Dead, logging out.